The Vietnam War and the push for US involvement was a result of the Gulf of Tonkin incident. A lie. The Iraq War famously is a result of lies. Wars in Somalia are a result of lies. The Second World War and the German invasion of Poland was a result of carefully constructed lies. That is war by media. Let us ask ourselves, of the complicit media, which is the majority of the mainstream press, what is the average death count attributed to each journalist?
Once again, Anton Karas, the third man, did all of the music actually. And at the top, and the cold opening was Julian Assange at an anti-war rally in London back in 2010 or 11. I'm Randy Critical live on the fly. Assange, Countdown to Freedom, episode 34. We are just a few months away from the resumption of the farce of a trial, hearing, whatever you want to call it, of Julian Assange. And we don't even know where in London. They don't know what courtroom yet, but it resumes sometimes in mid-September. So we are in overdrive now for the next 10 weeks until that transpires, as much as we can possibly do. And we definitely could use your help. I'll tell you about that at the end. But we're going to get right into this. Kelly Lane, by the way, our editor and our engineer is in North Carolina. And Sarah and Emily Kunzer, who do the web work, they are somewhere in New York. And so am I, somewhere in New York. Nobody knows where, but somewhere. So we're going to get right into this. We are going to interview for the first time in years for me, Greg Palast, an investigative journalist, written a lot of books. He's going to talk about Julian Assange, and he's going to talk about the election 2016, 2020. I think you should pay attention. Greg's got a new book out. And this is the first time he has been on our Assange series, and I'm very happy to have him on. We'll be right back after with Greg Palast, who's out in Hollywood, after this great tune by Neil Young. This is the season. It's called Ohio.
Tin soldiers and Nixon coming. We're finally on our own. This summer I hear the drumming. For dead in Ohio. Gotta get down to it. Soldiers are running us down. Should have been done long ago. What if you knew her and found her dead on the ground? How can you run when you know?
That was Neil Young, Ohio. I'm Randy Critico. This is Randy Critico live on the fly. Assange Countdown to Freedom, episode 34. And I can't believe it took 34 episodes before I got my old pal on, Greg Palast, the investigative, award-winning investigative journalist who I've known for many years. I even performed with him at a benefit in 2009 for one of his books. He's got so many out there. I worked on his book. I actually performed in your book along with Larry David. I did Henry Kissinger and a few others, George Bush.
That's right.
And I'm here sweating in upstate New York. I think it's because I got pulled over by the New York State Police today, but they actually were quite cool. At any rate, the one and only Greg Palast, who's got a great new book, interesting new book out. And I know you're all over the map, Greg, doing interviews. So you go ahead, show it to me.
There you go.
Show me your LARC pack. There, I got it too, right there. Okay.
Okay.
See it? All right.
How Trump stole 2020.
All right. Yes, it's an interesting concept. But you also say he stole 2016.
That's correct. He had to practice.
He had to practice. I saw the documentary that we did, that you did back in 2017. I had you on 2016, 2017, and your new bride, Lenny, was in it as well. Bad Penny, she was on that boat going to some rich man's house. That was a great documentary, which I can't even think of what it's called right now.
It's called The Best Democracy Money Can Buy. That's, in fact, there's the movie poster.
Well, there it is.
Best Democracy Money Can Buy with Rosario Dawson and Willie Nelson and Miss Bad Penny, now Mrs. Palast. And it's real undercover reporting about how they're going to steal the 2016 election. But no, you didn't believe me, Randy. You went out and bought your party dress for Hillary's inaugural. I said no. It's
Whoa. I was working with Jill Stein. I went to her party that night at some Mexican restaurant, and I left when I saw that Trump was winning in Pennsylvania. I said, oh my God, that was the worst feeling I had since Reagan won in 1980. You know what I mean? It really was.
I told you so. Trump and how Trump stole 2020, which is just came out. Boom.
Right. Wait a second. It isn't 2020 election yet, where it's not for a couple.
No. You can't. You have to understand. In order to understand how Trump stole 2020, and I'm putting it in the past tense. And by the way, in case you're wondering, it's not like I have crystal balls. I can't project the future. He really did steal it already, 2020. But
so it's over then. So I'm not going to vote and do any more.
No. You have to unsteal it.
He's already won 2020. There's no sense me doing any shows.
No, he didn't. He won it, but now you can steal it back. That's the point of reading the books. You can bust the burglary. In other words, just look. The only if I thought that there was
he stole it in advance, but we can get it back.
Right. Exactly. And that, in fact, at the back of the book, I'll tell you the ending. I won't give anything terrible away, but here's how it ends. It ends with something called Greg and Ted's new improved ballot condom for safe voting. And Ted, the reason I say Greg and Ted is that my illustrator is Ted Rall.
Yeah, I saw that. He's very good.
It's a comic book, a 48-page comic book in the middle of the book. For those of you,
is this Marvel?
No, it's more marvelous than that.
DC? Is it DC Comics or is it Marvel?
7 stories Random House. But here's the thing, is that, so we have a ballot condom. Now, Randy, no, don't rip it out and try to wrap it around the ballot. That's not how you safely vote. The ballot condom in How Trump Stole 2020 gives you practical information about how to save your vote. And by the way, I don't care if you're in bluish states like New York and California. There are 2 items there. The second item is check your registration. You know that I checked my registration here in cool California, and guess who was erased, purged, removed from the voter rolls? It said Greg Palast, no such voter. I tell you right now, go to your Secretary of State's website, check your name. Check for Randall Credico. Because Randolph.
Yeah.
Oh, Churchill.
I was named after Randolph Scott. Now, wait a second. I'm in New York. Well, they could purge. They did purge.
Wait.
Sanders.
2016.
They did. They screwed Sanders. You're right.
In 2016, and it's in the book. It's in How Trump.
They actually screwed Bernie Sanders because it was one of the most progressive parts in Brooklyn that was purged. That's
Yeah.
a true story. I'm not lying to you. I mean, I
Enough
can't
is
even do
enough.
Joe Biden. Really, I can't do Joe Biden's voice. I'm not excited about him. All I know is I want Trump to lose. But you know,
Look,
how am I going to get it up for Joe Biden?
I want the voters to win. So what happened
Let the
is
voters decide, right?
you lost 125,000 voters who were purged, removed, erased, disappeared from the voter rolls of New York. That was to shaft Bernie Sanders. And by the way, the
Right.
court put on those names after the election, of course. That is the game. And by the way, there's a chapter in How Trump Stole 2020, even though it's about how Trump stole 2020. You know what Noam Chomsky's favorite chapter is? Noam Chomsky's favorite chapter is called California Riemann. It's about how they stole California, not just 16, but this book is so, actually went to the printer from my typewriter just a few weeks ago, and it includes the theft of California from Bernie Sanders this year in March 2020. They stole, are you ready for this, Randy? The Democratic corporatistas stole 553,000 votes from Bernie Sanders. I kid you not. You have to look at the math. It's so huge. It's so enormous. And in fact, what impressed Noam Chomsky, he said, you know, from the numbers I'm looking at, Palast, they stole more, the Democrats steal more votes than the Republicans. And no one comes close to Alex Padilla of California and the corporate Democrats in terms of straight up vote thievery. But that's—
Does this include Dianne Feinstein too?
Yes, she is a vote thief in chief. You have to understand that the corporate Democrats couldn't get elected in California if you let everyone vote, especially Hispanics. Don't forget that Bernie Sanders was the overwhelming choice of Tio Bernie was the overwhelming choice of Latinx voters here in California. They're 40% of the Democratic Party. So there's no way. Corporate Democrats can't win when they're shafting a Hispanic vote. And unless they shaft the Hispanic vote, they have to shaft the vote. They shaft the voters, then they have to shaft them out of their vote. It's just like what the Republicans do. Look, you can't be killing black people unless you take away their vote where they can do something about it. So how Trump stole 2020 is an expansion. He's got new tricks based on what he did in 2016. And that's very important. I'm glad you brought up 2016 because he didn't win 2016. In fact,
wait a second, Greg.
Yeah.
I just got to put this in. This is Randy Credico live on the fly. Assange Countdown to Freedom. And I wanted to zero in on 2016 and the election because I do have to spend some time here because I've been going through the ringer on this whole deal. How me and Julian and Roger Stone actually hurt Julian by coming out and saying he was connected. He hurt me by saying I was a back channel. But, you know, there are a lot of liberals out there. A lot of your fellow travelers in Southern California in the showbiz industry, you know, all of those rich people out there living in the mansions that are Democrats, that are liberal, who hate Julian Assange, they still are looking for a scapegoat for Hillary losing in 2016. Was it Julian Assange who was responsible? Greg Palast, tell me yes or no, so I know what to do with the rest of the show.
I'm sorry, Randy, you're going to have to buy the book because it has a chapter on just that. It's called Russian to Judgment. If you like really, really bad puns, Russian to Judgment. And it's about how the Russians didn't steal the election. I'd like to say that someone else did it. I'd like to say we didn't do it to ourselves, but we did. Okay. I was on MSDNC, you're familiar. And they asked me, well, the Russians going to steal the elections before the election. The Russians going to steal the elections, hack the vote in Ohio. And I said, the Republicans are in control of Ohio. They have passwords, motive, opportunity. They know how to play this game. Do they really need some pimply kid in his mommy's bedroom in Moscow helping them to win the election? No. The Republicans already know how to steal elections. No, thank you, Mr. Putin. They don't need your help. And as I point out, the accusation from the Mueller report is that there was about $350,000 in ads, mainly Facebook ads, spent by Russian oligarchs. And you go, oh, well, that reaches trillions of people, and every planet reads it. Well, Randy, no. That's spit. Hillary Clinton spent $1.5 billion on ads. $1.5 billion. So it literally 10,000 times the ad purchase from these so-called Russian oligarchs, who, by the way, about half their money was spent also on promoting Trump. So, it depends. I mean, on not promoting Trump, but attacking Trump, promoting Black Lives Matter. It doesn't matter.
I know there's a lot that's involved in 2016, but I know one thing that did not happen. Julian Assange did not give Hillary Clinton a campaign map that excluded Michigan and Wisconsin. So,
right. Yeah, that's what I said.
But why does everyone think that he is the guy that put Trump in? Why don't they disabuse themselves of that?
You gave me a breaking piece of news. You mean it wasn't Julian Assange who told Hillary, whatever you do, don't, our
don't
chief
go to Michigan or Wisconsin.
Not going to Wisconsin.
Yes.
No, I don't think so. By the way, and a very important point about my colleague, and can I underline that? Colleague, yes. Julian Assange. I'm a reporter. I report for The Guardian.
Investigative journalist.
And investigative journalist. Julian Assange is a journalist, okay? A very important journalist. It's like he's with a news service, WikiLeaks. That's like saying an AP reporter is not a reporter because they're part of a news service. No, what he is, he's a real reporter. You know what he isn't? He isn't a repeater. Most reporters in America are just repeaters. They take the official line and they repeat it. And so what you have with Julian Assange, okay, it's not, and by the way, I don't care if you like him, don't like him. It's not about his personality, his personal life. Forget all that stuff, okay? What this guy did is he brought us the truth. He's been charged, Assange has been charged under the Espionage Act. Now that's spying. Spies take, for ideological reasons or money, they take secrets and they give them to a foreign government. When you take government secrets, which are basically secrets about how they're lying to us, and you make it public, that is not a violation of the Espionage Act. In fact, Daniel Ellsberg was charged under the Espionage Act, but the judge, who, by the way, Judge Sporkin in that case, who used to be the CIA's general counsel, said, I was with the CIA and I don't remember us having an official secrets act in the United States. We don't have that. Saudis have it, Britain has it, Russia has it, but we don't have it. There are no official secrets in the United States. Spying is when you sell secrets to a foreign nation. Spying is not when you are a reporter revealing the truth to the American public. We were the victims of these things. And by the way, the WikiLeaks document, I want to underscore this, could have saved the lives of the men on the Deepwater Horizon. Did you know that? I did a story. I was investigating the Deepwater Horizon explosion. It turns out.
Wait a second. I don't know what Deepwater.
Okay, if you remember back in 2010, there was a giant oil rig that blew up in the Gulf of Mexico, the Deepwater Horizon.
Oh, yes,
okay.
Of course.
Did you know that in the documents that Julian Assange released, the WikiLeaks documents, there were internal memos between the Bush State Department, Condoleezza Rice, and this ambassador in a nation called Azerbaijan. It turns out that they had an explosion on the Deepwater Horizon, an explosion on an oil well in the Caspian Sea that was identical to the oil well, the Deepwater Horizon oil well in the Gulf. And this happened 17 months before the Deepwater Horizon blew up. But the State Department covered it up. Now, it didn't even tell the Interior Department about what happened in Azerbaijan, which by law they must. So what happened was the Interior Department said, this Deepwater Horizon drilling is way too dangerous. And the BP and Exxon and most importantly, Chevron said, no, it's not dangerous. We've never had any problems. Now, they just knew that there was another oil well explosion, a platform blowout, identical to the one in the Gulf. They just had that. So they lied to Congress. Now, I knew that they lied because of WikiLeaks, because I got the internal documents showing that Chevron, Exxon, BP, the U.S. State Department, and the Azeri government covered up the blowout at the oil rig. They were lying, and we only know that they're lying because of the work of Julian Assange. So thank you.
You're an investigative journalist, Greg. So I guess that was part of Cablegate. Then I'm not an investigative journalist. Was that disclosure part of the Cablegate?
Yes, it was part of the releases. And see, unlike other reporters, I didn't just scream about Julian releasing this information. I went through it with my fellows in Britain, fellow reporters, and we found this amazing document about this prior explosion. I flew to Azerbaijan to confirm it. You have to understand, what Julian Assange did is tell us the truth, and that's why he's facing a life in prison if they don't figure out a way to knock him off first. So this is not about Julian Assange, his person, his personality, his love life. I don't care about that. This is about charging a journalist for committing journalism. And
then let me ask you this, Greg. Before I want to talk to you about this a little further, before we get back into your book, which I think is amazing. It's like 400 pages, this book. But getting back to him, why? There it is. Don't worry. When this is not live, Greg. It's going to go to editing. We're going to get a better shot of that. Okay.
Raising the book up. I don't know.
Yes. Well, I got it right here, but I'm looking. I'm scrolling down. It's. I can't wait to read it. I have an advanced copy. Let me, Greg. So I want to go back to Assange. Why do you think? All right. So you got the Cablegate. You go back and you have all of the disclosures from the Iraq, the war logs, right? And then disclosing the corruption of the DNC. That doesn't bother you, right? The disclosing. Don't you think that was the right thing to do? You have this information about the corruption of the DNC. You got Brooklyn, New York State suppressing the Sanders turnout. And then you have Donna Brazil and Debbie Wasserman Schultz suppressing Bernie from even having a fair, competitive, equal chance to win that.
Well, understand what the Democratic Party did. It was a crime. And that's what Julian Assange exposed in the papers and WikiLeaks was a crime. Okay, you have to understand. What the Democratic Party did is that they did joint fundraisers. Okay, you can't give $200,000 to a candidate in America legally, an individual. Okay, you can't do it. It's against the law. So what they did, but you can give $250,000 to a party, so to a political party. So you have a $250,000 donation given to the DNC, which is then effectively turned over to Hillary Clinton for her campaign. That's just not a matter of being unfair. You know that's a felony crime. That's a violation of the FEC criminal statutes. It's a crime. And that's what he was busting. It's not a matter, and so understand, it's not a matter of trying to undermine Hillary's campaign. I don't care whose campaign it undermines. Like I say, I'm an investigative reporter. I'm busting in how Trump stole 2020. It's about how the Republicans are stealing this election, and they stole 16, and they're going to steal 20. But I can't let the Democrats off the hook when I have the information. And Assange did the right thing, and WikiLeaks is doing the right thing. It's our information.
Right.
It's not their information.
We should have access to it, right? We should have access. Why would anyone want that information to be suppressed? If you're an American citizen, you're paying taxes, we have a constitution. Why would anyone who's a Democrat, whether it be Rob Reiner or any of his, and I like him, I like his work, but he seems to be more liberal when he was Archie Bunker's son than he is right now. But why are these people like so hard on Assange and soft on James Clapper? You know what I mean? You know what I mean?
Well, here's the thing. They're hard on Assange, but they're soft on the racist vote thieves. That's the big thing. What the issue here is race. When I say Trump stole 2020, he stole it from the voters. Which voters? The voters of color. And you have to understand, I start out the book in Georgia in 2018, and that's when Trump stole it. And how did he steal it 2 years ahead of any vote? The answer is they got a Supreme Court ruling in 2018, which allowed them to use a new system of removing voters from the voter rolls. So Brian Kemp, and you could probably do a better imitation of Brian Kemp than I can.
Listen, I haven't heard his voice lately. I'm still stuck on Lindsey Graham being upset about Greg Palast exposing our thing. I don't like Greg Palast doing that. All right, go ahead.
Thank you, Lindsay. But I'll keep doing it. So back in 2018, this guy, Brian Kemp, he's the GOP Secretary of State, and he's running for governor. So the guy is in charge of the vote. He decides who gets to vote, where you vote, which votes get counted, and he's running for governor. Even the Washington Post, not the Washington Post, even the Wall Street Journal said it was unethical. He removes 500,000 voters. I sue him to get his hit list because, that's supposed to be public, or I could have waited for Julian to release it, but instead I went to federal court, got the hit list.
You actually went to federal court?
I went to federal court, and by the way, you know how I won the case? The judge listened to my lawyers, she listened to Kemp's lawyers, and said, basically, the governor is lying to this federal court, and therefore there will be no trial. Greg Palast has won, and you will pay his attorneys. How about that?
Wait a second.
Yeah, that's true.
I hope they were billing you a lot of friggin' money, man.
Yeah, well, I told him, crank it. But the important thing is that, yeah, we got a federal judge. So, and again, this is not, you don't get a lot of American journalists who bother to do this. So I got the actual hit list. When I got the hit list, I hired a bunch of experts to go through the list. Now, understand what they said was that people had moved. How many people had moved? Well, they had 500,000 people moving out of Georgia in a short period of time. So one of the questions is, where are the moving vans? I didn't see any. So we went through the list with the people who know where you live. You know, who knows where you live at any moment and you can't hide from them?
Right. Who?
Amazon. So I went to the Amazon experts, the guys who work at Amazon and eBay and American Express and Netflix and all those guys, because they know exactly where you are. They know where you were Thursday at 2 p.m. And I said, have these people moved out of Georgia? Can you help me out? And they said, well, you need special licenses. And so we went through the whole rigmarole, and we went through 240 databases, back files of the post office, and we could tell you that 340,134 voters, by the way, that's 1/3 of a million, Randy. 1/3 of a million voters were wiped out illegally, wrongly, told they had moved and they hadn't. So I go to the Atlanta voting station, and who's there? A 92, there's this woman in tears. She's with this older woman. Turns out she's 92 years old. She's been voting at the same Atlanta voting station for 50 years, and they threw her keister out, said, you are been erased from the voter rolls. Now, I went to her house afterwards, the one that they said that she moved out of. How long had she been living there? Her whole life, basically a century. She hadn't moved. And I said, and then I see a picture of Martin Luther King with her having dinner. I said, did you know Dr. King? And she said, he's my cousin. So she's been voting 50 years at the same polling station since the year her cousin was assassinated. May I tell you, it would be a wild guess, but you would be right if you guessed that she's African American. You would guess.
Really?
Really? And I was at the same voting station, Raheem Shabazz. You want to guess his race?
I'm going to guess. Give me a few hours. Here.
Shabazz, do you think it's Armenian? Anyway, so Raheem Shabazz was denied the right to vote, so they gave him something called a provisional ballot. If you don't know what a provisional ballot is, it's like a placebo ballot. It lets you think you voted when you haven't. And they gave him a nice I voted. They gave him a little picture of a peach with an I voted painted on it to wear. So he got the I voted peach sticker, but he didn't vote. I mean, he voted, he got to fill out a ballot, but they didn't count it. How many ballots are not counted? Well, of provisional ballots, 2 million were cast in 2016. 1 million were not counted because—
So wait a second, you tell me that Kemp did not win that election?
Not even close. And Stacey Abrams, his opponent. Now, Stacey Abrams is the first black woman to ever run for governor of any American state. What was historic about her was not her race or her gender. It was historic that she's the first Democrat I've ever heard who said, I won this election, but
She said that,
but I will not be inaugurated governor because of these Jim Crow tricks. And she specifically cited the 340,000 people wrongly purged that we had identified. And by the way, it's not a statistical sample, it's name by name. So the book is filled.
Hey, Greg, this really bothers me because you got 2 open Senate seats this year in Georgia. We really need. Look, I'm not a Democrat, but I don't want the Republican. I don't want McConnell being in control of the Senate anymore. And these 2 seats in Georgia, you know, we're not having a revolution here. So everyone who thinks they're pure and they're going to vote for a third party, they better get on board and know that this is a critical election. You know, so I'm going to hold my nose and try to get the, you know, to keep out. I'll put the Hindenburg in before I put the Hitler in, okay? So that's where we are right now. But I'm really concerned about Georgia, the Senate, more than I am the presidency, because he's stuffed in 500 federal judges that are not in the interests of the people that like Trump. You know what I mean? They don't represent their interests. It's just amazing. So those 2 seats in Georgia are up for grabs. But are we going to reverse what the fuck happened in 2018?
Well, I'll tell you this. Stacey Abrams herself is taking action, but also I know that there are major organizations like the ACLU, NAACP in Georgia who are looking at our material because they're really figuring out how they can here's a good idea, let the public choose the senators in Georgia, let the public choose our president in America. And I want to explain again that, and there's 2 seats, you're right, 2 seats up for Senate in Georgia, and those voters, that 1/3 of a million voters, have not been put back on the voter rolls. But I'll tell you this, and that's not good enough. They're trying to remove another 150,000 voters. And I'm looking at those lists, and and our experts are going through those lists. Once again, the voters are guilty of voting while black. They haven't moved anywhere. Raheem Shabazz. Okay, so I go to their houses, and by the way, it's not just Georgia. And when I say Trump stole 2020, Georgia was the test case where they tried the new method of removing black voters from the voter rolls. So then they took it to Wisconsin. I was in Wisconsin just before the lockdown, and I got the hit list from the state of Wisconsin. Now the Democrats have taken over, and the Democrats literally handed me the list and said the Republicans said you got to purge these voters by state law. Palast, what can you do about it? So you'll see in the book, I actually, believe it or not, Greg Palast.
What's the name of the book?
How Trump Stole 2020. So what they did was, the states asked me to go through that list. Again, 3 out of 4 names are people they said have moved, and they have not moved. Now, I went and checked. Maybe our numbers are wrong. So I went, they had one woman, Saquonna Taylor. Now, I know why she was on the list, because she's definitely guilty of voting while black. So I asked Saquonna Taylor, besides being guilty of voting while black, have you moved out of Milwaukee? You shouldn't be voting in Milwaukee. It says you've moved out of Milwaukee. And she says, I don't think I've moved out of Milwaukee. I'm Milwaukee County Supervisor.
Oh my God. That's amazing. So
No, it is.
Do you have examples
everywhere
in Wisconsin, in Michigan? I'm sure there's a lot of examples of being removed from the rolls. What about just intimidation by poll watchers and other shenanigans that voters?
Oh yeah, okay. Here's what they're doing. Trump is calling for 50,000 volunteers. Basically, it's a vigilante force. And we know what they're doing. They're harassing. The plan is to do what the old White Citizens Council used to do.
You mean William Rehnquist did that, right?
Yeah, that's right. And he became, he was punished. He went to prison for violating civil rights, voting rights law. Oh, no, he didn't. He became Chief Justice of the Supreme Court.
Right.
That's what happens when you.
That's the thing, Greg, because we only got about 5 minutes left. Because this is part 1 of a 2-part interview with you, because I can't get it all in one. All right. So I'm gonna cut this off in a few minutes. But going to the Supreme Court here, what's your feeling about how they are going to respond to lawsuits prior to the election
Oh boy, you've asked this frightening question. What are the Supremes doing when they change their white hoods for black robes? The Kavanaugh court.
And
Okay,
Gorsuch.
let me give you a case from 2 weeks ago. It was insane. Just so you know that to mail in your vote in Alabama, where Doug Jones is fighting for his life, the Democrat, to keep his Senate seat. And the only way he can keep his Senate seat is if they can is through mail-in balloting. I mean, otherwise people are going to die if they vote. You have to mail in or die. But in Alabama, you have to notarize your ballot. Like that, Randy? You have to notarize your ballot. And if you don't notarize your ballot, by the way, where do you find a notary during the lockdown? Not only that, you have to know that's a poll tax too. You're $15 to vote is what it comes down to. Or you can, yeah. And so the Supreme Court,
back to 1940, 1950.
That's right. Missouri, the same. You have to notarize your ballot. Now,
if you do what? If you do a provisional ballot or a mail-in ballot?
If you do a mail-in ballot, you have to notarize the mail-in ballot. You have to notarize it, okay?
How do you mean you have to notarize it? You have to go to the post office and they stamp it?
No. You have to go to a notary public. And usually that means going to a bank or an accountant's office. You have to go to a notary public and pay them, $10 to $20 to notarize.
Now, let me ask you this, Greg. Are people who pass these laws, is it because they fear that there'll be fraud in these mail-in ballots? Or is it because it's the only way they can fucking win?
It's B, the only way they can effing win.
All right, I'm sorry, we're going to edit my fucking out of it, all right? Because I never use it, but you got me so angry right now. That's the first time I think in 33 episodes where I use the F-bomb.
Okay, now let me think about this. Think about this, Randy. Okay, a federal judge said, are you crazy telling people to find a notary? And by the way, if 1 million people, voters in Alabama, want to vote by mail, and that's what they expect, no notary can notarize more than 20. So you're going to need 50,000 notaries. We're going to have to ship notaries to Alabama so people can vote. So a federal judge said, this is insane. There aren't even enough notaries in Alabama to let people vote. So, and they're going to be in danger. You can't endanger people's lives to get a notarization. So the federal judge said this violates the federal law and the Constitution, and you can't do this. But the Supremes, then it went right, an emergency review by the Kavanaugh court, 5-4, saying Alabama can make you paint your face blue in order to vote. You can bleed, you can die, but you got to follow their rules. That's Alabama. Same at Missouri. Now
that's states' rights. Then I guess that's the original intent of the Constitution. Is that it?
To shaft you out of your vote. Now here's the thing, and think about
way back when that Constitution was written, there wasn't individual voting. It was by property.
We didn't. Right, we didn't have individual voting, and that's one of the things we've made tremendous. Look, they can't steal all the votes all the time. That's how Obama won. He overcame the theft. In my last book, Billionaires and Ballot Bandits, we calculated a 5.9 million vote steal by the Republicans against Obama. He just overwhelmed it. They can't steal all the votes all the time. Wisconsin, which is one of the most vicious states, talk about a Jim Crow state. Those cheese eaters have the worst Jim Crow operatives in America. Scott Walker was the governor. You have a GOP legislature. You know what they did 2 weeks before the election? You were asking about the 2016. 2 weeks before the 2016 election, the courts impose a Republican rule that you have to have a state photo ID to vote. Okay, well, 182,000 University of Wisconsin students have photo state student IDs. But they won't let them use the student ID. You can use your state gun license, you can use your hunting license, but you can't use your student ID. You have to go to the dean of students and get a special ID. So they disenfranchised 182,000 University of Wisconsin students 2 weeks before the election. Now, they can now vote if they go to the dean of students office, get the new ID. But that's not good enough, Randy. Are you ready for this?
Put so many hurdles there.
No. I'm not going to let you interrupt.
Trying to perfect democracy.
You don't even know the hurdles. You're a student. You've now gone to the dean of students office, which, by the way, is closed right now because of COVID. But let's say it opens up and you get your new ID. Great. You're going to mail in your ballot so you don't die, or because you've gone home. They've closed the school, so students have gone home. So you're going to have to mail in your ballot. But guess what? And you've got the ID. You're so proud of yourself. But now you've got to make a photocopy of that ID, include it in the mail-in ballot. And guess what? You have to have a letter from the school that you are enrolled and in good standing. And you have to put that in the mail-in ballot. Now, what does flunking algebra have to do with your right to vote for president? And by the way, you think that's not it, Randy. And once you put those 2-3 pieces of paper in that envelope, you better add a stamp, because now you've gone over the 1 ounce limit, or you will be one of the 100,000 voters whose ballots were lost for postage due.
All right. Hey, Greg, look, you're depressing me, so I'm going to have to bring this to an end. Not really. I know we're going to get to, we are going to get to the solution, Greg. This is part 1. We're going to get to the solution in our next interview. I just did a 4-part series on Thomas Paine, all right? With a professor.
I've got a picture of him on my door now.
Well, you should see the 4-part series I just did with a guy who wrote the book, The Promise of America, Thomas Paine, Harvey K. from the University of Wisconsin at Green Bay. So we just did a 4-part series, and the greatest journalist, as far as I'm concerned, ever. He was a whistleblower and a revolutionary journalist. And just let's just cap this off, since this is Assange Countdown to Freedom. Just a little postscript on your thoughts about Julian, and do your Andy Rooney, like a 1-minute closing on it.
Okay, it's really simple. It's really simple. I don't care what all this stuff about Julian Assange and how you feel about him personally. I don't care. He is a journalist, and most important, a good journalist is a conduit of the truth. And he showed us the truth. It's not about his opinions. It's not, and I don't care where he gets his documents or whatever. The important thing, can we handle the truth? That's the real issue. Assange has given us the truth. The issue is, how are we going to deal with the truth, not how are we going to punish Assange for telling us the truth. It is madness, and it threatens, I'm telling you, it threatens every journalist, this charge of espionage against a working journalist who did nothing but show us the documents. He didn't cash in on it. This is ridiculous. He only did it for one purpose. He could have sold it to Putin, okay? Instead, and made a killing, right? Instead, he did something else. He gave it to the American public and says, these are your documents of your government. Now you decide. You decide if they're telling you the truth. So what he has done, and I'm very concerned, because if you can file a claim against a journalist for reporting the truth, and no one's claiming that these documents are fabricated, no one's claiming that they're made up, these are the real thing. So if you can be charged for telling the truth, every journalist is in danger. And I've been ashamed of some of my fellow journalists, ashamed that some of them are saying, oh, that we actually there were some Times reporters who got prizes for repeating Julian Assange's story and taking his information, who are applauding him going to prison. What the hell is that? I can tell you, by the way, anyone listening to me, if you're a source of mine or you're a news service providing me information, I will not rat you out, and I will certainly not applaud one of my news sources or a news service reporter I'm working with going to prison for helping me with a story and say, oh yeah, send him to prison, but give me the Pulitzer Prize. Screw that.
Wow. Greg,
get the book.
Those are really, I'm glad you said that. And you gave us some thoughts here that I don't get that often, different angles to the overall perception of Julian Assange. Whether you like him or you don't like him, the most important thing, and I know people don't like him for whatever reason, but I don't like Fox reporters, but I don't want to see them go to jail either, right?
Right.
All right. So our Breitbart reporters, I don't want to see anybody go to jail. I mean, he's a journalist. And look, I've already said this a million times. I'm not going to say it again. My thoughts, everyone knows. That's why I've done a 34 of these so far this year alone. And Greg Palast, we're going to have you back because we really only got through about one half of what I wanted to talk to you about. So you'll come back on my.
Randy, when does this go out?
It's going to be out tomorrow.
Okay, so, therefore I want to offer something for Randy folk, okay? If you can get How Trump Stole 2020 this week, which means Friday or Saturday, get it this week. We have not yet released the audiobook, so therefore I still own it. So guess what I'm going to do? If you're a Randy Credico listener, you get the book, send me like a screenshot or a photo of a receipt or the book copy, book jacket or something like that. I will send you and say that you saw me on Randy Credico. Go to audiobook@gregpalast.com. Audiobook@gregpalast.com. I will send you the audiobook for free. I can do it today and tomorrow. That is Friday and Saturday. But after that, I may not own the book at that point, and then you got to buy it retail for $20 or the audiobook. But I'll give you the audiobook.
All right, great, Greg. We're going to keep it at that so we can get this up tonight. All right, Greg Palast. We'll talk to you soon, Greg. Keep up the good work, and we'll do part 2 in the next couple of days. Okay?
You got me.
All right.
Thanks,
Greg Palast. We'll be right back after Crosby, Stills, and Nash and Young. This is Chicago, folks. CSNY.
So your brother's bound and gagged, and they've chained him to a chair. Won't you please come to Chicago just to sing? In a land that's known as freedom, how can such a thing be fair? Won't you please come to Chicago for the help that we can bring? We can change the world. We are raised the world inside to get better. Politicians, sit yourselves down, there's nothing for you here. Won't you please come to Chicago for a ride? Don't ask Jack to help you, cause he'll turn the other ear. Won't you please come to Chicago, or else join the other side? We can change the world. We are raised the world. It's dying. If you believe in justice, it's dying. If you believe in freedom, it's dying. Live a legal life, it's dying. Rules and regulations, who needs them? Open up the door. Somehow people must be free. I hope the day comes soon. Won't you please come to Chicago, show your face? From the bottom of the ocean to the mountains of the moon. Won't you please come to Chicago? No one else can take your place. We can change the
Crosby, Stills, Nash and Young, Chicago. Love that tune, and I remember that era so well. I'm Randy Credico live on the fly. Assange Countdown to Freedom. I want to thank my special guest, Greg Palast. We will have him back on for part 2 because we have so much more to cover. And he really does such a tremendous job. And he's really focused and dedicated to his work. And it's a good thing to see. We will be continuing this show, Assange Countdown to Freedom. This is, like I said, 34 now. And right through the next hearing, somewhere in London, yet to be determined. But I'm going to be honest, we can't even cover our bills right now. And I am not a well-to-do person. I can assure you of that. I'm an activist all my life, a political activist. And I ran a civil rights group for 20 years, and I'm a good activist and a good organizer and a good director of of a nonprofit that I ran for many years, but a terrible fundraiser. But look, I'm just saying, if you want to support this show, if you want to see this kind of programming going through and after, dedicated to Julian Assange, then please go to our website and then go to the menu and go to support and just throw in a little bit just so we can cover our bills. That's it. And I want to thank Kelly Lane down in North Carolina, who does the editing and the engineering. I want to thank Sarah and Emily Kunstler, who run the website, and Margaret Ratner Kunstler, who gets involved in a lot of the ideas and gets me a lot of guests and writes the descriptions and things like that. So once again, Assange Countdown to Freedom.com. We are now going to play something that we've played in the past, and this is our tribute or our memorial to those who have been victims of a very, very racist criminal justice system. It's always been bad in this country. It's not something recent. And this is the great, great, great Billie Holiday, and a great tune, I don't know, a very moving tune called Strange Fruit, written by Manny Marivelle. All right, thank you very much. And that's it. See you soon.
With what has happened. So the last 2 centuries, African Americans gunned down by law enforcement, enslaved, put to work convict leasing, put in jail with the drug war. But in the last week, it's really heated up, and it's got to stop.
Southern trees bear strange fruit, blood on the leaves and blood at the root, black bodies swinging in the southern breeze, strange fruit hanging from the poplar trees. Pastoral scene of the gallant South, the bulging eyes and the twisted mouth, scent of magnolia, sweet and fresh. Then the sudden smell of burning flesh. Here's a fruit for the crows to pluck, for the rain to gather, for the wind to suck, for the sun to rot, for the tree to drop. Here's a strange and bitter cry.